The problem with the fields of psychotherapy, psychiatry, and psychology isn't the theory. The theory and research are generally wonderful and quite true to the reality of psychopathology. The problem is the practice. The practice of psychotherapy is mostly a sham. The reason it is a sham, a racket, is the same reason getting your driver's license is a sham. A driving instructor is not incentivized to get you to obtain your license as quickly as you can within as few lessons as possible. Quite the contrary. The worse you are at learning how to drive, the longer it takes, the more the instructor earns. It is the same with psychotherapists. The more hours they can write, the loftier the house, and the more frequent the vacations. And the more pills they push, the more often Big Pharma sponsors these vacations. That is why a lack of accurate diagnosis is so prevalent. It is in fashion. The dismissal of the validity of diagnostics, I'm not making this up, is in fashion. If someone, for example, is actually in reality a BPD, a genuine borderline personality disordered individual, it's very common, and it can easily take many years, if not decades, and tons of psychotherapists, therapists, professionals, doctors, physicians, before through diagnoses and approaches and treatments like angles like anxiety, depression, ADHD, social anxiety, PTSD, etc., etc. Someone can perhaps finally get the BPD diagnosis, if at all. A diagnosis which requires a very specific kind of treatment. But meanwhile, over the course of all these years, the industry makes a lot of money, and the patient loses a lot of years as well as trust in the system. While trust is of the essence with such a patient, to put it mildly. Therefore, besides exploitative, it is even abusive in and of itself. This structure, this culture within psychotherapy. This gratuit way of operating also translates into other fashionable tendencies, similar to believing diagnosticism is dated and arbitrary. Sure, mate, even less quality control on the profitable, vague thing you're doing. Another example is the claim that it is not necessary nor helpful to delve into the original traumas themselves. It is not uncommon that people are in therapy for years and many substantial traumatic experiences in their lives never ever get asked about or are deemed not particularly productive to discuss. Isn't that just ridiculous? I think it is. The same applies to them, I mean the therapists, deliberately being very hard to reach. Their flat affect, their minimal personal emotional involvement in you, and their super rigid boundary standards. That constant sense of pushing back, boundariness that they shove, that they exude emphatically in every aspect surrounding the therapy, in every communication around or involving or concerning the therapy. Of course, again, this makes good sense. If you can make a lot of money without that tiresome effect traumatized, fucked up, suspicious people have on you, without having to delve into their horrendous abuse histories at times, or their pathological Munchausen-like bullshit, their pathology, their winery, and with barely having to communicate with them outside that strict 45-minute session, that way too short, way too often, way too short 45 minute session window. Why would you not subscribe to these fashionable field beliefs. Is it not in your own interest? The same also applies to explanations like missing a click with a therapist, searching on for the right therapist, having to be open to therapy, therapy only working when you do the work yourself, the right form of therapy, the right style of therapy, etc., etc. Now, I don't want to dismiss these dimensions, these arguments, these facets as being untrue in and of themselves, but they too, in combination with the absence of performance data of individual therapists, in concert with all these factors that I just mentioned, they too, in concert, contribute to this culture of gratuitousness. Furthermore, and now I want to delve a little bit more deeply into the philosophy, into the real psychological structure of therapy. Furthermore, there exists a very disturbing dynamic in the classical psychotherapeutical talking therapy dynamic. Make no mistake, this is a power dynamic. And a dynamic that can very easily get upset, get offended when its authority is not taken for granted. The egotistic psychotherapist likes you to be in awe of his knowledgeability, likes you to be helpless and stereotypical, and likes you to be the kind of patient he knows how to help or believes to know how to help. As soon as you are yourself well informed about psychology as a body of knowledge or critical contemporary academic insights, as soon as you are roughly equally intelligent as your psychotherapist in general, as soon as you do not fit in some standard issue, submissive, stereotypical patient basket, and as soon as your problems, especially, and your symptoms are of a comorbidity or complexity that requires more of the psychotherapist than leaning easily into his authoritative mystique as a way to defect and defer, you challenge the doctor's authority. Add to that the offenses of being critical of the field, having tons of experience with the field, and possessing a certain justifiable cynicism towards said field, being from a family of doctors or mental health professionals yourself, so not to be preemptively impressed by any such professional status, or, God forbid, being a young male, a young white male with male truths and uncompromised, clear male life incentives, and even worse, having the wrong politics and a biological rather than a sociological outlook on human interactions and behaviors and life. Oh my God. Then the offense is complete. Oh, from here on, sad professionals will harbor a rather persistent oppositional stance against you that one should definitely distinguish from the regular, common, therapeutical pushing back neutrality required of therapists and therapy. No, this is different because this is a smirky, competitive, and overtly condescending stance that is of a more all-encompassing overture that accompanies their resistance to your truths, each and every one of them. As soon as they recognize your reluctance to yield to their repertoire, they will become extremely frugal with their affirmations of you in your observations and beliefs. More often than not, they will pathologize everything you say, indifferently of whether these thoughts are healthy or not healthy. You are just quintessentially misguided. Ha ha! You are such a projecting little shit. Funny thing is, you are often case mentally healthier, for sure, mentally healthier than these stuck up, privately ridiculous train wrecks of divorcee boomers whose children loathe them and who can only survive mentally by completely psychologically denying reality and projecting their lack of control onto you as some faux life know-it-all pseudo-expert. They need you to obtain the lower ground because their ego function requires it to mask their abject lack of courage and the state of abundant proof that is their life that they themselves do not know how to master life. That will be $150, please, taxpayers, or in America, you yourself. Please pay within 14 days. Thank you. From this corrupted base, you will be normalized into submitting to this boomer expert class and their idealistic notions of human malleability. You will be disillusioned, being told that you have improved, but feeling inside that the true core of your pain has been dodged rather than addressed. But siding with your own investment of time and mental cathexis, you will temporarily agree with their assessment and continue on your path, ready for another round of compliance as a consumer worker voter castrato until you hit the wall again, sucked dry by the matrix again, fatigued by those same unresolved traumas and developmental lackings again, and return to your search for a worthwhile mental health counselor. Year after year, therapy after therapy, physician after physician, until you start to figure out the racket. A possible solution could be physicians, psychotherapists, whenever they suspect serious pathology, personality disorder, upon a patient's entry, knocking at their door, that they should be required by law to immediately send them to a randomized diagnostic pairing. RDP. I just invented that. A randomly paired psychologist and psychiatrist, or psychologist and other psychologist or psychotherapist, a pairing who, after 2 sessions with the patient, so that is psychotherapist, other psychotherapist or psychiatrist, and patient, need to jointly, those 2 psychotherapists, come to a diagnosis that then needs to be revised, reviewed, and condoned by a third party or supervisor. This RDP, randomized diagnostic pairing, might save the insurance companies, the taxpayer, or the patient himself tons of time and money and break the cycle of profitable tardiness. That or AI diagnosis. That or simply maybe the hourly fee of psychotherapists should be lowered to disincentivize any such perverse tendencies. Or the method of payment should be charged from hourly fee, or the method of payment should be changed from hourly fee to a total honorarium, total sum to be delivered upon reaching a certain percentage of improvement measured through questionnaires with the patient in question. These are just examples. Ideas? I don't know. If you have a better idea, please let me know in the comments below. Curious to hear about your thoughts. Bye bye.